Tired of lugging stuff around? Build yourself a cart like this. You got a couple of wheels that came off. We got an axle that came with it. The whole thing came from a welding tank cart. That's the metal frame. The plywood was added. It's screwed to the frame with number 8 self-tapping screws. The axle itself came with snap-on caps that you couldn't put them on and off. So we got rid of those and we put 5/8 bolts inside the axle to hold the wheels on. The bolts don't back out. There's nothing holding them in but friction. We took a center punch and we center punched the axle to make a little dimple on the inside which catches the threads of the bolts. The wheels, as they came from the factory, were very cheap and wouldn't hold up on a construction site. So I took them to a bicycle shop. I spent about $60 a wheel. They put special inner tubes in them that are thorn-proof. It's a special all-terrain tire. They put some green slime in there so that no nails would flatten it, and it's worked out pretty well. The front plywood is hinged at the bottom with just 4-inch door hinges, and it'll hold a lot more with that front flap down. You can put benders, pipe benders, hang them from the handle there. And this whole thing breaks down into a box about 1 foot by 2 foot by 3 feet. I tried to find some toolboxes that would fit in there that I could buy, and I couldn't find them, so I just threw together some crates and made some toolboxes. They fit in there real good. The wheels are 20-inch wheels, and you can actually get them up and down a stair. That works out pretty well also. You can see, if you look real careful, where the handle hits the frame, there's wing nuts there that can come off, so you can get the handle to break down. So with that front flap down, you can load more than just your tools. You can put all kinds of equipment on there and stuff like that. The original frame was rated for 150 pounds. I've had about 300 pounds on there, but that's a little too much. It's good up to about 200 or 250.
See it in action?
Yeah.
All right. All terrain.
Yeah, it'll roll off gravel, roll over gravel real well. It's got a little bit of a clearance problem right there between the two wheels. If you're going over a bump in the middle, it can get a little tough. But other than that, it rolls real well. It'll go up and down hills real well. Okay, so what you're looking at here, on the back of it, the original axle that came with the tank cart, you can see 2 little U-bolts there. And originally those U-bolts were smaller and they held the axle right to the frame. It got very hard to break down the cart that way and store it. So what I did was I took a piece of 3/4 inch conduit and I U-bolted that to the frame. The original axle had 2 flanges like this, and they're just spot welded on there. So in order to slide it into that conduit, I knocked off the flange on this side and ground down the spot welds, and it slides into that conduit real well. Here's the bolt that holds the wheels on. There's a little dimple right there that I punched in with an awl or a center punch. And it's just deep enough to create a little bump in there that catches the screw. Here's the flange that came with it. The wheel sits here. This flange has 4 little spot welds. Here's where the flange was on the other side, and I just beat the flange off with a hammer and then filed off the spot welds so it was smooth. Here's the U-bolts holding on the 3/4 inch conduit that the axle goes in. And then here's the 1/2 inch plywood screwed to the frame. Piece of 1/2 inch rope holds the front panel to the frame when you want to keep it closed. You just wrap it around and tie it. Down below you can see the hinges. With the front flap down, the rope is just long enough to keep the front flap horizontal. The door hinges are held on with, I believe, 1/4 inch carriage bolts. Down where those hinges are, there was a little lip that held the welding tanks in, and I cut that off with a reciprocating saw. The weakest link in the whole structure is right here. It didn't come with these wing nuts. I put those on there. I also drilled out those holes to make them bigger to, I believe it's 3/8 bolts. Like I say, this is the weakest part of it. There's probably a way you could modify that and make it better. But with those wing nuts, you can back those bolts off, and then the handle comes off, and then the whole thing will fit in a box exactly this size. That's about a foot deep by 2 foot tall by 2 foot wide. I keep bungees on there to secure things. With the flap down, this thing's a little too long to get through a doorway. So I keep a door holder right there stuck in between the plywood so that I can hold the door open and then walk it through and then close the door back behind me.